जंगल जंगल फिर बात चली।
तो बच्चों, पता है आज हम आपको कौन सी कहानी सुनाने वाले हैं? इसका नाम है द क्रेन एंड द क्रैब और सुना रहे हैं राहुल चैटर्जी। आओ मिलकर सुनते हैं।
I'm going to tell you a story from a long time ago. Now listen to this. In a quiet part of a beautiful forest was a lake. The water in the lake was clear and undisturbed, and the animals of the forest loved to visit this lake. You know why? Because it was so beautiful, and because the water was so pure. They would drink that water, you see. Also, there were plenty of fishes in the lake. The fishes were silver in color. And when the sun peeped in through the branches and leaves of the trees and fell on the water, the lake would glisten with a silvery glow from the light reflected from the beautiful silver fishes. When a gentle breeze blew, the water of the lake would make small waves, and it would produce a sound of soft gurgling water. The waves would reflect the sunlight in all the colors of the rainbow. Can you imagine how beautiful it was? Now all this made the forest absolutely magical. But do you know what was happening? Amidst all this beauty and peace, there was a crafty crane, and he had some devious plans. You see, the crane had become old and was unable to catch the swift fishes in the lake. But it was hungry, so it devised a plan. The crane sat at the edge of the lake, pretending to be very sad, and started weeping. And do you know who saw him crying? A big, healthy crab. The crab asked the crane what happened, and why was he crying, and why wasn't he hunting for food that day? The crane said he was really sad and that he was feeling very guilty for having eaten so many fishes. The crane continued to say that he would die of hunger, but he wouldn't harm another fish. Not even the one that is within his reach. The crab was surprised and asked the crane why was he so philosophical. Tell me what happened, the crab asked. Now listen to what the crane said. The crane said that there was very bad news for everyone. He had heard the villagers discuss that there would be no rain for the coming 12 years. The lake would dry up, the fishes would die, and that made him terribly sad. The crane recalled how all of them played together and lived together in this beautiful place for so long. And now he was worried about the poor fishes in the lake. If they all die, I will be so lonely, the crane said. The crab was listening with rapt attention, and he asked, "Is there no way we can save ourselves?" The crane said that in the other lakes, the fishes and all the other creatures were all migrating to bigger water bodies with the help of their friends. But he was so worried that no one seemed to care here in this lake. And the crane said, "At this rate, all the fishes will perish." The crab was very alarmed and informed all the fishes and the other creatures of the lake. They all got very worried, and naturally they needed help. So what did they do? They came to the crane and asked him to lead the way and save them from the danger. This is exactly what the crane had wanted. The crane readily agreed to help. He said that he knew of a big lake not very far away. It has plenty of water throughout the year, where lotuses always bloom, and it had so much water that it wouldn't dry even if there was no rain for 24 years. He said he was ready to carry each one of them one by one to that beautiful lake. Now you see, the poor fishes and the other creatures were very simple, and at once they trusted the crane. They agreed to be ferried one by one to the big lake. But do you know what the crane was really doing? Every day the crane would take one fish at a time to a lonely place where there was a big rock. He would land on the rock and eat the fish. He continued repeating this trick every day for quite some time. One day, the big healthy crab asked the crane, "Why don't you ferry me today and save my life? You have been saving the fishes only." The crane thought it would be a great idea to change his taste. He was tired of eating fishes every day. Little did he know what was in his fate. The crab climbed onto the back of the crane and they flew towards the big lake. After flying for quite some time, there was no lake in sight. But the crab noticed a huge rock with fish bones lying on it. The crab asked, "Where is the lake? I can't see it yet." The crane laughed at the crab and said, "You fool! There is no lake, and there will be no drought. I will take you to that rock and eat you." The big strong crab immediately got hold of the crane's neck with his strong sharp claw and began to tighten his grip. The crane fell on the rock. The crab bit even harder until the crane passed out. The crab then slowly dragged the lifeless crane to his friends. At the lake, all the creatures were worried why the crane didn't return. The crab then narrated what he saw and said, "You fools! The crane was taking us one by one to a lonely place on a big rock and was feasting on us. I found out his mischief and saved myself by biting his neck until he couldn't move anymore. From today, we can all live happily without any fear."
The Crane and the Crab. कैसी लगी कहानी? इसे सुना रहे थे राहुल चैटर्जी। तो आज के लिए इतना ही।
कल मिलेंगे इसी समय।
क्या कहा? इससे पहले के एपिसोड्स आप नहीं सुन पाए? कोई बात नहीं, हमारे YouTube चैनल आकाशवाणी AIR पर प्रसारण के बाद हर एपिसोड आप सुन सकते हैं। तो ये कहानियां सुनते रहिए, कहीं भी कभी भी।
हाँ, फेसबुक पे हो? मम्मी पापा किसी से भी कहकर हमारे फेसबुक पेज आकाशवाणी फीचर्स पर जाकर बताओ कि आपको स्टोरी कैसी लगी। बाय।
A presentation of the Central English and Hindi Features Units. This program came to you from the External Services Division of All India Radio.
जंगल जंगल फिर बात चली।
Welcome to Folk Tales from India from the selected and edited works of A.K. Ramanujan. Today we bring you a Punjabi folk tale titled Four Girls and a King. A king spent the day sitting on the throne and holding court, but at night he would wander through his capital in disguise, looking for adventures. One evening he saw four girls sitting under a tree in a garden, talking very earnestly to each other. He stopped to listen. The first said, "Of all the tastes, the taste of meat is the best." The second said, "I do not agree. There's nothing so good as the taste of wine." "No, no," cried the third, "you are both wrong. The sweetest taste of all is the taste of love." "Meat and wine and love are sweet all right," said the fourth, "but nothing can equal the taste of telling lies." The girls were then called home and they left. The king, who had listened to this exchange with great interest, made a mental note of the houses they went to, marked each door with chalk, and returned to his palace. The next morning he called his Wazir and said to him, "Send someone to that narrow street next to the garden and fetch the owners of the four houses which have a round mark of chalk on their doors." The Wazir went there in person and brought the four men to the court. The king asked them, "All four of you have daughters, don't you?" "Yes, we have, your highness," said they, trembling. "I would like to talk to your girls. Bring them here," said the king. The men objected, fearing some harm to their daughters. "It is not proper for our young unmarried daughters to come to the palace." The king said, "Your daughters will come to no harm, I assure you. They will be safe and you can bring them without any publicity." Then he sent 4 litters with curtains to the 4 houses, and the 4 girls were brought to the reception room of the palace. The king summoned them one by one to his presence. To the first he said, "Daughter, what were you talking about last night when you sat with your friends under the tree?" "I wasn't telling tales against you, your highness," she answered. "I do not mean that. Just tell me, what were you saying?" "I merely said that the taste of meat was the most pleasant of all tastes." "Whose daughter are you?" asked the king. "I am the daughter of a Bhabra." "If you are one of the Bhabra tribe, what do you know of the taste of meat? They never touch meat. They are so strict that they even drink water from a vessel through a cloth, for fear they might swallow an insect." "That's quite true, but from my own observation, I think meat must be extremely pleasant. There is a butcher's shop near our house. I have noticed that when people buy meat, nothing is wasted or thrown away. It must be quite precious. When they have eaten the meat, the bones are seized upon by the dogs, and they do not leave the bones till they are picked clean as a lance head. And even after that, the crows come and carry them off. When the crows are done with them, the ants gather and swarm over them. That's why I think the taste of meat must be very pleasant." The king was very pleased with her argument and said, "Yes, daughter, meat is indeed very good to eat." Then he sent her away with a handsome present. The second girl was then brought in, and the king asked her, "What were you talking about last night under the tree?" "I was not talking about you, your highness," said the girl. "That's true, but tell me, what did you actually say?" "Oh, I said there was no taste like the taste of wine." "Whose daughter are you?" The girl replied, "I am the daughter of a priest." "That's a joke. Priests hate the very name of wine. What do you know of the taste of it?" The girl said, "It's true. I never touch wine, but I can easily understand how pleasant it is. I learn my lessons on the top of my father's house. Below there are wine shops. One day I saw 2 nicely dressed gentlemen who bought wine, sat there and drank it. When they got up and went away, they staggered about from side to side, and I thought, Look at these fellows weaving through the street, knocking against the walls, falling down and getting up at every step. I am sure they will never touch that wine again. But I was mistaken. They came back the very next day and did the same things. That's when I said to myself, the taste of wine must be very delicious. Otherwise these men would never have come back for more of it. The king said, "Yes, daughter, you are right. The taste of wine is indeed delicious," and he sent her home with a handsome present. He then called in the third girl and asked her, "What were you talking about last night under the tree?" "I wasn't saying anything about you, your highness," said the girl. "I know that, but tell me, what were you saying?" "I was saying," she said, "nothing in the world is so sweet as the taste of love-making." "But," said the king, "you are a very young girl. How can you know anything about making love? Whose daughter are you?" "I am the daughter of a bard," she replied. "It's true, I'm very young, but have eyes and ears. From what I have seen, I guess somehow that love-making must be very pleasant. My mother suffered so much when my little brother was born. She did not even expect to live. Yet very soon after that she went back to her old ways as a dancing girl and welcomed her lovers just as before. That's why I think love-making must be irresistible." "You're absolutely right," said the king, and sent her home with a handsome present. When he asked the fourth girl the same question, "Tell me what you and your friends were talking about last evening under the tree," she too said, "It was not about the king." "Nevertheless, what was it you said?" "Oh, I said that people who tell lies must like it very much." "Whose daughter are you?" asked the king. "I am the daughter of a farmer," she answered. "What made you think there's pleasure in telling lies?" The saucy girl replied, "Everybody lies." "Oh, you yourself will tell lies some day if you haven't done so already." "How come? What do you mean?" The girl said, "Give me 2 lakhs of rupees in 6 months and I will prove it to you." The king was intrigued and he gave her the money and agreed to wait for 6 months. 6 months later, he called her to his court and reminded her of their agreement. The girl had meanwhile built a fine mansion with the king's money. It was beautifully furnished with paintings and carvings as well as silk and satin. She said to the king, "Come with me and you shall see God." The king arrived at the mansion that evening with his 2 ministers. The girl said, "This place is God's own dwelling place, but he will reveal himself only to one person at a time, and he will not reveal himself to anyone born out of wedlock. Now you may enter one by one." "All right," said the king, "let my ministers go in first. I will go in last." So the first minister went through the door and found himself in a peaceful and lovely room. As he looked around for God, he said to himself, "This is a lovely place, certainly fit for God. But who knows whether I will be able to see him or not?" He looked some more and strained his eyes, but he couldn't see God anywhere. Then he said to himself, "I can't go out now and tell the others that I didn't see God. They will say, I am born out of wedlock, so I will tell them I have seen God." So he went out, and when the king asked him if he had seen God, he answered at once, "Yes, I saw him as plainly as I see you." "Really, did you see him?" "Really and truly I did." "What did he say to you?" "He asked me not to repeat his words to anyone," answered the minister. Then the king asked the second minister to go in. The second minister obeyed his king's orders, but as he crossed the threshold, he thought in his heart, "I wonder if I'm born out of wedlock." He was now in the magnificent chamber and stared all around him, but he too did not see God, nor any signs of him. When he returned to the king, he said, "I have not only seen God, but I have also spoken to him." Now it was the king's turn, and he entered the chamber confidently, but he looked and looked all around him and saw no sign of anything like the Almighty. He was very troubled and began to doubt himself. "Both my ministers have obviously seen this God, wherever he is. Obviously they are true sons of their fathers. Is it possible that I, the king, am born out of wedlock? And that's why I cannot see God. Admitting to this will lead to confusion of every kind, so I have to say that I have seen him too. Having decided this, the king stepped out and joined the rest. And now, your highness, have you also seen God? Asked the girl who was waiting for his return. Yes, he answered firmly, I have seen God. Really, she asked again. Certainly, insisted the king. The girl asked the same question 3 times, and all 3 times the king lied without a blush. O king, said the girl, don't you have a conscience? How could you possibly see God, since God is a spirit? Hearing this rebuke, the king suddenly remembered the girl saying that one day he too would lie, and he broke into laughter and confessed that he had not seen God at all. The 2 ministers, by now shamefaced and alarmed, also confessed the truth. Then the girl said, O king, we poor people have to tell lies now and then to save our lives. But what did you have to fear? Telling lies, therefore, has its own attractions for many, and to them at least the taste of lying is sweet. The king was not offended by the trick the girl had played on him. Instead, he was so struck by her wit and confidence that he asked for her hand and married her. She became his confidential adviser in all his affairs, public and private, and she grew in wisdom, and her fame spread through many lands. You were listening to a Punjabi folk tale titled 4 Girls and a King. And with that, we conclude our program of folk tales from India from the selected and edited works by A.K. Ramanujan.
Destination India. An audio tour of a mesmerizing place of incredible India.
Amber Fort is one of the most beautiful and impressive fortresses of India. Located a few kilometers north of Jaipur in a hilly area, it was a regional capital before Jai Singh II decided to build a new residence in Jaipur. The Amber Fort is a huge complex high upon a rocky crest. The complex is made up of the fort plus palaces, temples and courtyards. It was originally constructed by Raja Man Singh and was added on to by others through the ages. The inside of the palaces are as marvelous as the exterior. The Amer Fort has influences of both Hindu and Muslim architecture. This fort also has the Sheela Devi temple and the Ganesh pole, which is a gate that leads to the private palaces of the kings. The structure has 4 different parts, each with a separate entrance. The main entry of the fort is through the Suraj pole or sun gate, which opens up into the main courtyard. This east-facing gate is also the main entrance to the palace, and its position with respect to the rising sun is the source of its name. The Jaleb Chowk is one of the 4 courtyards of the Amer Palace. The Sheela Devi temple is right at the entrance to the main palace grounds. The second courtyard is famous for its Diwan-i-Am, public audience hall, the Sheesh Mahal and the Sukh Mahal. Diwan-i-Am, or the Hall of Public Audience, is a beautiful hall standing on 2 rows of ornamented pillars and opens on 3 sides. It is said that the king used to listen about the needs and complaints of the general public. Diwan-i-Khas, or the Hall of Private Audience, has delicate mosaic work in glass. In this hall, the king used to meet special guests from other states, ministers and his friends. A very famous attraction here is the Magic Flower, a fresco carved out of marble. The Amer Fort has many pavilions and halls of great interest and other popular attractions. The fabulous Sheesh Mahal is decorated with thousands of pieces of pure glass. The reason for this being that the queen was not allowed sleeping in the open air. So the Maharaja had her room built in glass so she could still watch the stars at night. The Mughal Gardens are also nicknamed the Andalusia because of their resemblance to the gardens in southern Spain. The Sheesh Mahal, Palace of Mirrors, is breathtakingly beautiful. There are courtyards and gardens which give it more of a feeling of being a palace than a fortress. Upon arrival at the fort, you will have the option of making your way up to the gate by way of elephant or walking. Riding an elephant uphill seems a cliché for tourists, and it is. But it really helps feeling the ambience and plunging deeper in India. This program was conceptualized and produced by Monica Gulati with assistance and production by Savita Khera. The script was by Megha Kashyap, your narrator Albina Michael.
Do tune in to our next edition of Destination India for another exciting journey.